The next panel, entitled The Potion for the Right Infrastructure Deployment, will explore the pros and cons of infrastructure sharing, identify key investments for future networks, and outline the criteria for effective infrastructure deployment. Helping us brew the potion are the following panelists. We have Ms. Maria Stepneva, Head of Sales Canada, Juniper Networks; Femi Oshiga, Vice President, Sales Outdoor Wireless Networks, CommScope; Rashid Al-Ahmadi, CEO, InfraX; Jeremy McElyan, Director of Business Development of IT and Networks, Sofrecom; Tony Jaharan, President, Strategic Broadband Consulting; Hassan Al-Shumaili, Head of Technology Planning, DO; and Imad Ahmed, Chief Expert Carrier Business, Huawei, Middle East and Central Asia region. Faras Medhabi, Managing Director of PMP Strategy, Dubai, will be the person moderating the panels.
Dear gentlemen, dear Mrs., esteemed panelists, welcome for this session about the potion for right infrastructure deployment. The first theme I want to tackle is about infrastructure sharing and optimization. And my first question will go to Mr. Imad Ahmed, and it's about digital twin. How can digital twin can be leveraged in order to do infrastructure sharing?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you to Telecom Review for hosting us. And it's one of the best sessions I've had, 18 years. I think this is one of the best we have hosted. First of all, I just like to say that, when we look at Mr. Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, whenever he talks about digital twin, there's a spark in his eyes. I hope I'm wearing glasses, but still, that spark comes across. Because when we talk about AI, we are talking about all these Gen AI and all those kind of different things. The key differentiator or the key technology that just gels it all together and brings real innovation, one of those technologies is, digital twin. And digital, like the capability to visualize your assets, your capability. And at Huawei, I'll just give you an example for Huawei, and working with our partners, like in case of DO, where you've seen an Insta360 camera. All of you must have seen an Insta360 camera. You can create 360 visualization. So what we do with that is, we have got a tool, we call it iPicker. That iPicker app is able to digitally record the whole asset. It could be a data center, it could be an edge data center, it could be a remote site, a RAN site. That data is then uploaded as a standard model. We call it a LOD 200 model, level of description model. That level of deployment model, that can be then uploaded into a data lake. It is uploaded into our own platform as well. And we can use that to visualize our asset, to not only look at our asset as a physical or a digital twin, but also to look at how we can scale out, how we can manage, how we can optimize, how we can create the digital dashboards for the CXOs, how we can run the services, and on demand, how we'll be able to scale. And at any given instance, the management is able to look at, or the team is able to look at those assets in the digital sphere, and based on the requirement, either think about, can we scale in, scale out, can we deploy new capability? All of this is something that is there for the taking. And I believe that digital twin, as we evolve and more parts of the society and the digital infrastructure of the city gets connected, the dream of that intelligent city, a smart city, this will all become a reality. And we in the telco sphere, honestly, I believe that we are in the bleeding edge. We can take the lead, and we can show to the cities, to the governments of the region and the world, how we can evolve on this. So digital twin is a fantastic sphere, and I'm really excited about the limitless potential that it brings.
Thank you, Mr. Imad. Second question is for you, Mrs. Stepneva. How can an organization effectively balance the benefit of infrastructure sharing?
Perfect question. Thank you for that. In terms of infrastructure sharing, there's, as we know, pros and cons. And effectively, infrastructure sharing can be very beneficial for small operators who don't have enough capex to invest into and build their own fiber, build their own towers, right? So piggyback on some bigger operators who already had a fiber rollout, it's very beneficial for them. So they achieve higher ROI. They get closer to the customers much faster. They can scale out much faster. However, one important aspect needs to be considered is that there are definitely security vulnerabilities and vendors lacking potential because you're not only one in the game. There are several parties. So I think it should be aligned from a very beginning in terms of a security and compliance agreement with the party with whom you share this infrastructure, how you're going to introduce changes, how your security patch is going to work, what you're going to do in terms of outage. Or what if outage has happened? Who is responsible for that, right? That should be taken into account, and I think it should be agreed in the very beginning, because if it's not, like, then they can face multiple issues afterwards. Second aspect, I think it was not considered earlier here, but I would just like to mention it should be volunteer infrastructure sharing. So what we have faced in Canada is an example. CRTC forced key service providers to open up their fiber, and I think Tony Giron, who is in the panel here, he can talk more about that. Then you build the fiber over 10 years, and then the government entities come in and force you to open it up and sell for cheaper for our providers. That kills the competitive advantage, and essentially that kills the economies of scale and causes a little bit of a frustration. So we should take care of such thing, and government regulatory should be controlled in that sense.
So it's government control that pushes to that. The big players are not incentivized, rather than just regulation on the share?
It's just regulation. They wanted to introduce more newcomers, but the way it was done at the cost of bigger players in the market, and that caused Telus or Bell, for example, look into other markets, I would say. So Bell, as we know, a month ago announced that they are purchasing Ziply fiber in US. So they're going outside of Canadian market, and they invest into fiber in US. That just was not the case before. Or I think Telus is looking in the same direction because they see the better benefits there. So they disincentivized the local carriers to invest into fiber, and I would question this decision. I think Tony can comment more on that, because he was basically the one who was building the fiber for Telus over 10 years, right?
Okay. Okay, clear. Another aspect of infrastructure sharing is colocation, and my question goes to you, Mr. Ushiga. So what is the role of data center colocation in infrastructure sharing in the future?
The way I look at it, we have, let's take Middle East and Africa. We have over 300,000 cell sites. Each one is potentially a data center. That is a massive asset that has the closest touch to the customer. To not share is almost criminal, right? Talk about latency, talk about capacity, talk about, CapEx spent. Not to talk of the newer trends coming in terms of sustainability, reduced power consumption, and so on and so forth. So not sharing or not using this asset in a collaborative way amongst all the network operators is a fault we have in our space. Okay. We think of data centers as this massive Amazon sites that are, 1 kilometer long and so on and so forth. We miss the asset that is sitting in the tip of our fingers, and we still don't know how to monetize it. So I think to me, that's immediately what I think about. And we're already there. Nokia today talked about Cloud RAN. To me, that's an interconnected RAN, i.e. an interconnected data center. Yes, there are security vulnerabilities, I take that point, but we need to be more aggressive in terms of what can we do with it as opposed to what are the concerns. That's the way I would look at it.
Okay, thank you. So to summarize, Mr. Ahmed Ahmed, I see potential in fiber sharing, tower sharing, data center sharing. To what extent, what is the maximal benefit operators can achieve with infrastructure sharing? And this should apply to the small operator and to the biggest operator as well. So.
Me?
Sorry, it was for him or
No, it was for you.
me? Okay, because the voice is echoing a little bit. I'll second Mr. Femi's point. He's talking about from a RAN perspective, if you're looking into the infrastructure side. But I would say, like, let's put this question into two tiers, first of all. Tier one, the next generation thing that everybody wants to talk about, edge data centers. From an edge data center perspective, I would even like operators in the region. Most of the operators are FMC operators. They've got their fixed and mobile part, most of them. And the local exchange concept that we used to have a decade ago, it has suddenly disappeared. But that infrastructure is there. That's a huge potential. The amount of collaboration that is possible, the amount of net sharing that is possible, and the potential growth for not only for telcos in terms of network sharing, but hyperscalers being brought in as well to leverage that. Because one of the most important things when we talk about 5G, we have to always remember when we are talking about 5G, we are talking about 3 pillars, minimum. Now there are more in terms of uplink and other low latency communication, but the 3 are ultra low latency communication, machine type communication, and EMBB. We still are stuck on EMBB. FWA is an EMBB case. If you are going to move into that sphere, and if we want to be moving into that area, the thing that we have to understand is where are our assets. So the number one thing is on the asset side that there could be a lot of network sharing, could be those fixed assets that we have. Then on terms of the solutions, in terms of facilities on the infrastructure, one of the things that I see is, we all heard the word MIMO in network, but there's a concept of MIMO as well on power side. And that concept of MIMO, or in terms of Huawei's product, we call it eMIMO solution, where you've got your solar panels, you've got your renewable source, other renewable sources, as well as then you've got your DG at times, and then you've got your grid as well. That gives you, a comprehensive mechanism of having a power, providing the capability to the network, but also storage. But my mind always goes to, and we have done this with a couple of operators in Africa, mostly, and Central Asia, where why are we only looking inwards? Why are we only looking at serving the telco industry? My edge site, macro site, the power that is going to that site, it could be leveraged to have an e-KSOC. So if we are entering into, the e-wallet world, we are entering into this digital sphere of digital services. Why don't we have a KSOC where we could be selling our products and services? People could be leveraging, there could be Wi-Fi access provided to the community, as well as when you have that kind of digital capability in terms of, let's only talk about power for a second. Why don't we provide that to, especially yesterday there was a discussion about 10% of, roughly 10 to 15% of the sites in the network, they are low revenue generating.
Yes.
They are not profit making, and the rest of the 80 to 90% is holding it up. But if you look at it from a small and medium-sized enterprise, which most of the carriers are not, it looks bad. But if you look at it from a holistic point of view, like we are majority of the telcos that are sitting here, they drive the GDP of the country. So in those cases, though the capability that we have on those sites, they are in remote areas. One thing that we have to appreciate and understand is those sites are in remote areas. Why cannot we leverage the power and facilities that are available to provide a grid capability to, for example, the village that is maybe never been connected to the grid? One light bulb can change the life of a child. That's what I always tell everybody, be it MTN, be it Vodafone, anywhere where we go, specifically where we have far-flung areas, where even at the Salat's case, like for example, there are networks in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and North Africa. One bulb can change the life of a child. So we could bring that capability of infrastructure and sharing of infrastructure, think of it holistically, as an asset for the community, not only for the telco itself. I think bringing it all together, there is a true possibility. So just to summarize, true possibility, edge data centers, then there is for a society. And the third thing that we can do in terms of infrastructure and sharing of infrastructure is for 5G especially, and 5.5G for that matter. We have this capability of massive throughputs, but we cannot do indoor that well still, because we are going higher in the frequency band. So indoor coverage is something that is, you need indoor solutions. Now for indoor solutions, like for example, I'll not name the country, but one of the countries in the GCC, We have got indoor sharing of the IBS solutions, or the LAMP sites as people call them. And all the carriers are connected. They're sharing the sites, they're sharing the cost, and you're able to put in a capability of a person having a gigabit level experience, no matter where he is. Because when we talk about these cases, and the most exciting thing that happened in 5G for me was, of course, low latency communication got me excited, but passive communication, passive IoT. Passive IoT and precise location tracking. Because one use case of millimeter wave, I'll just summarize on this point. One use case of millimeter wave is millimeter wave gives you a very precise location capability, centimeter level. And that is only possible, you cannot do millimeter wave everywhere. So why don't we all work together, collaborate, have that capabilities. Imagine you're in Dubai Mall right now, you are trying to triangulate getting to one shop to another shop using Wi-Fi, hopping over Wi-Fi APs, which is at best meters, couple of meter level. Imagine at centimeter level, it can exactly track you to where you need to be. So that kind of sharing allows us to do a lot. So with sharing, we could improve and get the last, in countries like even in UAE, the last 1% connected. We could be providing services beyond what our portfolio defines us to be providing. And we could be providing a service to the society, I believe. So there's a lot of potential in network sharing, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. I think we are all convinced that infrastructure sharing is one of the elements of the potion for right infrastructure deployment.
Definitely.
Now, what I would like to do is to project ourselves in the future. Let's try to play this game in which we predict the future. And my question goes to Mr. Hassan Al-Shamaili.
Yes.
What are your views on the future trends that will shape the infrastructure deployment industry?
So I would start with the emerging use cases, such as AR, VR, massive IoT connectivity and metaverse, as well as the AI, which will require a lot of expansion in our network. Second, the evolution of cybersecurity with AI, and this will require a lot of attention where we need to have a lot of investment in the cybersecurity domain in order to avoid any threat in the futures. 5G and beyond. So we will continue the expansion of 5G, as well as we will continue the progress for 6G, and this will require, again, a lot of investment on that domain. And as per Billab, 33% of the traffic will be AI traffic by 2033, as well as there's a hot topic which is called sustainability for everyone here. So, and there is a clear even mandate from our government on that topic. When it comes on how can we do that, we need to uplift the capability of our workforce, I mean the team. At the same time, we need to partnership with the leading technology leaders, so like our vendors and our suppliers. At the same time, we need to pay attention for the cyber security domain and invest heavily in that domain in order to avoid disaster in the future.
Yes. Okay, so you see a lot of impact on AI, on the future. So what about edge computing? And my question goes to Mr. Al-Hamaidi. You have a clear rise of edge computing right now. AI is probably one of the key drivers of the infrastructure deployment in the future. So, and this will not impact only the traditional telecom infrastructure, so it will impact, of course, the data centers as an enabler. So how do you see them evolving in the light of this?
So if I want to mirror the dilemma of edge computing versus the impact of the data center, I would maybe try to project it over the idea of offloading GSM network onto Wi-Fi. So it was driven mainly due to the high demand from bandwidth point of view and some of the use cases. So if we look into the data center and the impact of AI, definitely we see that could also bring the idea of edge computing to offload the impact on the data centers. So with that, the rise of, as you mentioned, non-traditional way of delivering the services would raise. And could be like very future-proof problem that we need to look at from today. And for example, we at InfraX, being incepted from a utility company where we have assets and infrastructure as electricity company across the city, we start to monetize and utilize the substations, the power substations, to enable them for edge computing capability. And where you will have better than a place where you have the power requirement in the future that will enable those AI applications to become closer to the customer. How acceleration it would bring us into fast forwarding to have this as a mass scale, it will be about first, to which extent we will have an impact on the current demand of the centralized data centers, and to which extent we will have AI-based use cases that will create that demand on the centralized model and will create the need to offload the network onto the edge capability. And this is definitely will be something that we'll need to look at from different perspective, how the operator will look into offloading the infrastructure on the edge, how we will bring use cases like caching, like other AI-based application analytics closer to the customer, how we will kill the dilemma between the on-prem and the data center to come up with something on the middle really to address both models. So all of that, I think it is in the early stage, but I believe it's very healthy to address it from now. But we took that burden on our shoulder to start to really facilitate that infrastructure to be ready. And now we have almost about 10 substations across Dubai are ready for edge capability. And we are trying to trial some use cases with our partners. But we hope that through all the infrastructure that is available in the city, we will be able to create more use cases. We will be able to increase the adaptation of edge capability in the near future.
Do you see inference as one of this use case? Because we talk a lot about generative AI. For now, generative AI latency is not of an issue. What about inference?
At the end of the day, we need to see if that traditional model will always be good enough. And as I benchmark the idea of the Wi-Fi offloading, maybe we enable it, but maybe we did not use it as often as was expected. So the question will be really, would we have really the niche use case that will accelerate that factor? And due to the capability today and due to the limitation of the data center in some regions, and due to the power demand, due to the infrastructure availability and restriction in some places, as you know, we see that this is like very slowly evolving. But I think as the technology evolves fast, we really need to look at it in a fast pace. At least we are ready from infrastructure point of view. And this is, as I said, from enablement capability point of view, this is where we are focusing. And then whatever like challenges will come on top, this is something to be addressed with the partner, with the full ecosystem.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is exciting because I see that there are many new trends, because we feel always that with 5G there will be no more innovation, and we have more and more technology, especially with these data centers and IE stuff. And this brought my attention to one element we should focus on, and my question will go to Mr. Tony Geheran. It's about security. So there will be new deployments, new ways of deployments. But what about security? How or what are the security considerations operators should have in mind in order to cope with these technology trend, but while keeping security first?
Yeah, I think over the last day or so, we've heard a number of times about security or data and privacy by design. And I absolutely firmly believe that's the right approach. So if you're looking conceptually at how do you ensure the security of a network or the data storage and data transport aspects of that environment, I think you have to have a chief security officer and organization working tightly with the business to develop the security posture for the organization. You can't do it in isolation because it has to be practical and it has to work on a business level, but equally you have to have a big picture view of what are the threats and vulnerabilities that we might be exposed to, and how do we build a structured security posture that's going to support the organization through that. So first and foremost, I would look to say, what is the technology stack? And with all of the partners that are involved, with the operator and the technology stack, you've got to make sure that everybody is aligned on the security posture and the process and the policies that you're developing. If you don't have your partners engaged in that process, you really can't sleep at night, because the first incident you get, you're going to have challenges going through the playbook of response because you're not getting all aspects of the end-to-end security chain effectively working. So I think that's a key factor, and making sure that the business and the organization are educated as to those policies. Those policies are audited in terms of their practical compliance and usage within the business is clearly another factor. Any security organization worth its salt has to have tight interlock with the government security agencies and industry agencies, so that collectively you can assess the threat factors that are emerging, and you've got business and security intelligence that is helping you shape your posture and prepare for the next malicious event that may be occurring, the next region that is going to create threat that you need to make sure that your environment is secure for. Having an isolated test and staging environment so that you can prove your code, stage releases, and make sure that what you're putting onto the network is tested and has been assessed. And when you've got suspicious files, that you can analyze and assess those files in a secure way without inflicting challenge to the network is also another factor. Making sure that the levels of encryption, the release management, certification management are all elements that are essential in that security posture. And if those aspects of those areas aren't kept up to date, you're going to have issues and vulnerabilities that are going to expose the business. We, as an organization, when I was at TELUS, would routinely conduct what we would call tabletop security incident exercises. Mostly we would do that around a certain type of year, maybe if a board meeting is happening, so you've now got your board, you've got your senior management executive, and then you've got your operating levels, and you're testing all of the playbook of response throughout the organization just to test how people respond and react to the incidences. And you can really get quite a realistic scenario developed, and you find a lot of weaknesses in your posture and your processes when you go through that process on a rigorous fashion. And I think that's an essential factor for a CISO to govern and make sure that is constantly updated and assessed for the need of the business. And then really looking at zero-day threat and how you're going to respond to that. What is the nature of malicious intent that's occurring? What region is it occurring from? And how do you work with other agencies to ensure that your firewalls and your encryption and other protective security postures are really up to standard. So it is a very comprehensive end-to-end overall structure that needs to be managed, and it's not something that you can say is job done. It's a constant state of evolution and evolving as needs and threats change.
Well, thank you. So I like the idea of having a chief security officer. You don't see third-party ecosystem developing around this?
Well, I think it's essential you're working with third-party ecosystems. Certainly, I mean, if you look back at in the middle of the year when we had some issues with CrowdStrike, you know, that a lot of organizations were using that as their frontline barrier of protection. And, you know, the entity that was supposedly building your barriers of protection created a problem. So I think it's really essential that you are working very closely with all aspects of infrastructure, whether it's on an IT and system stack, or whether it's core network and network elements, and or the access controls for the users that are going to be accessing your network and potentially bringing in vulnerability.
Okay, thank you. Another aspect, except security, that will, provide challenges and opportunity as well, is AI and predictive maintenance, as a predictive maintenance. And my question goes to you, Mr. Makilian. How can AI-powered predictive maintenance enhance the economics of the sector.
Thank you, Firas, for the invitation. Thank you, Mr. Haid, for the organizing the summit. Before answering the question, I would like to share a short story. At Sofrecom, we work a lot on mobile private network. It's a very interesting topic. As you know, mobile private network, as long as the companies has the right to use frequency, they can design, deploy, and operate a network. And I will come to the question, Firas. Having said that, they've learned that operating a network is not an easy task. And so they say, okay, come. And actually, I have so many examples with huge companies. I mean, they have IT people, they have telco people, but actually they cannot operate. There is a business for that. There is a role for the operator. And what is the difficult thing is maintenance. And so this is how we come back in our field of expertise. So, of course, maintenance is crucial. Maintenance is crucial, and just like we said, if we have to wrap up all we said, we are talking about IoT, we are talking about sensors, we are talking about all the important things that had to come into the centralized IT division to monitor the network and to operate it properly. This is exactly what we said. So basically, some very basic features in the technical environment of a shelter, the temperature, the humidity, if we can detect correctly in real time, and this is where IA is important, in real time, we can fix some small defects. And by fixing the small defect, we prevent big failures. It's important because if we have a failure, of course, we lose money. And if we lose money, of course, we are not happy. Having said that, just like you said, Firas, I'm director of the business development. When here we have some lessons learned, when we have some best practices in the operation of our network, we go back to our customer in the B2B environment and we propose that. And this is precisely another way to generate more revenue for the company in the B2B and helping, assisting the companies, all the industry, should it be in air and space, should it be in automotive industry, should it be in the port, in the airport, and we can assist them to design, build, and operate the network.
Thank you, Jeremy. Now, we talked about infrastructure, I talked about networking. And one trend I would like to explore more with you is network slicing. And I want to understand how it can be used in order to optimize the operations of the operator. And my question goes to Hassan El-Shamaili about this.
Traditionally, one size fits all the approach. But with slicing, the operator will have the ability to tailor different services. For example, you will have a slice for high reliability, slice for low latency, slice for example gaming, slice for let's say for FWA services, slice for enterprise. So the resources will be allocated according to the importance of that slice.
But what benefit does it bring to slice it like that?
The benefit is that you will guarantee a certain quality of service for that customers. For example, when you say that low latencies, it means that, for example, gamers will guarantee that they will have a low latencies while they are playing their games, for example. User like FWA today, the moment they utilize the network, they will consume all the resources on that cell. But the moment you limit or you define a certain service for that FWA user, then they won't be able to impact, for example, the low latencies slice.
Okay, and most of the providers you're working with are multi-providers now. So they provide gaming, they provide TV. So if you slice the network, which I understand, should the organization adapt?
Again?
Should the organization, the people adapt?
Yes, of course, yeah. Because at the end, the value of money that they are paying, they will earn it. For example, people who are paying for low latency, it's not fair for them, for example, at the end to end up with a huge delay with their latencies, for example. Unlike the FWA, for example.
Okay, so I see. There are effectively more innovation but more complexity, which will require a lot of investment. And this makes me think about the infrastructure gap and the digital gap. And my question goes to you, Mr. Jérémy Macquillion. How can we bridge that gap, especially in areas that do not have the means to invest that heavily in all these trends?
Again, before answering to the how, we shall answer to the why.
Why?
Why? We said that, I think it was Mr. Osman yesterday morning, that said that access is a human right.
Should be.
You share the story of these young children.
Yes.
I mean, if we put an antenna in a village and we can bring social, economic development, I mean, it's beyond a RAI. And so, for sure, this is crucial. Today, high broadband access is as important as the railways in the 19th century, the highways in the 20th century, and so today, they are the highways of information. And so they connect people to the rest of the world and allow the development of social, economic, and business also. So, I mean, the why, of course, we are all convinced.
Okay,
then how? I mean, it's the mission, I think, for the operator, should it be public or private, to help the population to live better. So it's, I mean, it's, so basically it's financing. We can share, just like we share. We said we can share the infrastructure, should it be the access, should it be the core network, whatever, but we can share to lower the cost of the infrastructure and to provide the services. They are essential. Again, it's a human right. We shall all think this way.
Okay, so there's another point in favor of infrastructure sharing, is to reduce that gap. Well, I understand. So many new trends, network slicing, you need to reduce the digital gap, many new investments. This makes me think about regulation and standards. And my question goes to Mr. Al-Hamidi. What should be the role of standards with regards to this?
So definitely the standard will drive the creation of the value out of all of these new trends. The question will be, as now we are living in the convergence of industry that drive the digital transformation. It's not the operator only anymore. It's not the technology provider anymore. It's the convergence from the users, even though who want to transform themselves. And I give an example of what we did in InfraX or Digital Diwa as a utility which transformed itself digitally to improve its efficiency, but also to produce business to the society. So all of that require a new way to look into the standard and the new forums, and probably such forum that we have today, like in the Telecom review, it's a good forum to have such debate and such discussion, but also we need to see how we can converge the standardization when it comes. Maybe the Telecom Regulatory Authority will require to have maybe more debates with the energy councils or with the municipalities to start to really see what will be the impact on such convergence in the future, and who will be like new players who would come and introduce to the market to really improve the way we are delivering the future next applications, the use cases of the future, in the best way. As this panel is talking about the infrastructure and asset sharing, definitely the involvement of such entity will be crucial, because you don't want to replicate investment. At the end of the day, most of these investments are to enable economy and society and digital applications on the region or in the country. So you would like to really think about how you can deliver it and bring it to the end users, to the benefit of the society in the most optimum way. And this will really require standards, but it's not the traditional standards. We need really to look into a transformative way of looking into the standards.
But do you have any, I mean, the problem is every country has his regulator. You have the ITU, certainly, who can help. But I mean, not all the sub-use cases are covered. What are your ideas about to bring these standards to make them global? from global to local?
I see, and this is maybe a call that I'm trying to advocate for a long time regarding when it comes to technology standard, when it comes to the mix and bits, we have perfect way to deliver everything. But when it comes to the business case and use cases, really how to transfer this from business language point of view, from business modeling point of view, I think we require a new, let's say, sub-chapters or focus group under the ITU, under the regulatory authority, or even under a different forum. And as I said, could be maybe we're putting some pressure on Tony to create some working committees and chapters to really look into the business model of the future. How we really can drive some sort of standards that will enable this, because technology will always be there. The technology will support us to deliver what is required, but then how we can put it on a win-win-win situation for the technology standard, the delivery partner, either it's the operator or the entity, and the end user. Because at the end of the day, it will not be an economy for one person to do everything. It will be an economy of partnership. So we need to look into the fragmented micro scale of playing a role of creating a chapter, creating an ecosystem, creating a business model where it's easy to integrate those entities to it and enable what we really require is the end use case to be implemented, the end use case and the value to be produced to the society, to the economy, and to the end users.
Okay. So many changes, probably standardization. This makes me think that the organization has to be future-proofed. And my question goes to you, Mr. Tony. What are the ways, you started talking about a chief security officer, but what are all the ways you envision for the standard and organization to be future-proofed in order to cope with the changes?
Well, I think, and I'd like to come back to some of the sharing discussion, because I think it's a really good point that we haven't really come to a conclusion on how to do it well. But in terms of future-proofing, I think from a strategic forward view, an organization, an operator or a vendor, and from a technology perspective, needs to look at where technology trends are leading, what consumer or business behavior is driving, so that you're assessing your investment in infrastructure that's going to support those needs. And given a deployment in fiber is a multi-generational investment, you've got, at best cases, 10 to 15-year paybacks on the foundation investment. So you've got to be looking forward to say, is this infrastructure going to serve for the long term, and will it enable the trended direction of technology evolution and the applications and the systems that will fall out of that? So you've got to have that view. Increasingly important in many regions around the world is climatic change, and are you protecting your environment from the climate changes that are going to impact the operation resiliency and reliability of that infrastructure? And certainly in Canada, every year now we see massive forest fires, and a lot of our infrastructure is aerial, so it's exposed and at risk, and increasingly.
But I don't see enough chief sustainability officers and operators.
Sorry?
I don't see enough chief sustainability officers and operators.
Yeah, I think that's a factor in your strategic outlook and the technology choices that you should make. So I think those are aspects that need to be considered as well. The biggest challenge, I think, for expensive capital investments is capital is scarce and harder to come by, and the cost of money is increasing in most regions in the world. And the one reason I like coming to this region is exciting is because it doesn't have some of the economic challenges most other places are really factored by. So in Canada, Bell and Telus undertook back in the early 2000s a network sharing arrangement. So if you look at the enormity of the Canadian continent or the North American continent, half the cell towers were built by Telus and half were built by Bell. And we share that infrastructure to common standards of performance, common standards of traffic management, and in some cases you may have more towers, but because you've got more in a dense location, you have a bigger geography coverage for the other partner. And I think that is a rare example of good infrastructure sharing. we would like to do the same on fiber because it doesn't make sense to build fiber twice. And one of the reasons why telcos have been really unsuccessful in capitalizing on the technology, monetizing it, is we're constrained by our network footprint, and we can't get out of that coverage model. But I think if we can get to better sharing arrangements, one, we lower the cost of deployment. Two, we can get to markets quicker, but you have to have that open business sharing mentality that says the winner is the best marketeer, not necessarily because we're all building to the same standard and the same technology underlying capability. So I think there's a long way to go on that. We don't do it well enough, and increasingly I think utility and power is going to play a big role in that as well. And I think most grids aren't sufficient to meet the growing power requirements for data centers. I think edge computing is one way of having micro data centers that will alleviate the big drain on a grid that these hyperscaler data centers create. And I think there's some exciting business models can evolve out of that edge compute opportunity. And if a telco with a legacy infrastructure that is evolving that infrastructure might find itself with a lot of real estate geographically well positioned, that it could facilitate repurposing some of that real estate into edge compute capabilities that are connected to network. And I think there's a business model there that hasn't yet fully evolved and been developed.
I'll just like to comment on that. Like that was rightfully said. Like, but in our region and across Asia overall, generally, you see national broadband networks. There was a spike in a lot of countries taking that initiative a couple of years, almost a decade ago. You have Qatar right now. There's a single passive network that is shared between the operators and the carriers. You've got Australia, where you've got a national broadband strategy as well. So that was, I think, that is where the regulatory authorities, the institutions, as well as the operators can work together on the passive infrastructure. Honestly speaking, the passive infrastructure, fiber especially, I think it's 2024, we are entering 2025. Why haven't we gotten fiber to everyone who wants or needs fiber? It should be one of the SDG goals, honestly speaking, but for 2030 or at least 2040. We need to get fiber to everyone who needs fiber connectivity because it's becoming paramount for the development of new skills as well as our children and the next generation as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So okay, the future is exciting, but I'm hearing many things. It looks like becoming more and more complex. And I would like to touch on the human factor, and my last question goes to you, Mr. Maria. How do you see the evolution of the human standards, human talent pool with regards with all this complexity brought with all the new trends?
The future is exciting. In terms of human factor or how decisions should be done within an organization, I believe that everything starts from business and head of the company, basically. I have a CEO, I will call it general manager. It starts from there to identify where you want to be in 5-10 years and define the business requirements and define what ROI you want to achieve in 5-10 years. And then it translates across the organization and go to the tech strategy. You have to have a very strong technical team who understands the network, who understands how to do OSS-BSS transformation project, vendors, if you'd like to consider, right? But tech strategy within organization should drive out the requirements and identify those use cases which will be tailored to the business goal, the business department, business unit would like to achieve. So, and these use cases eventually will translate in the infrastructure requirements because not every box is the same. Like as an example of Juniper, right? Some of them will support the best way IP core. Some of them will be applicable for data centers. AC access will be good for front haul or multi-service.
So you mean people will be more specialized in things? It's good to have a special pull down, but there shouldn't be something else sitting on top to identify where you're gonna go. Not many people can tell where the organization is going to be in 5, 6, 10 years. No,
but on a lower level, yes, I think if you go to the detail, you have to have specific experts who will address certain requirements within.
So the education system has to adapt.
Yes, education system always adapts. It's constantly evolving process. And it's hard sometimes to predict what it's going to be in 10, 15 years, and unless you're Elon Musk, who can identify those things. But definitely a specialized expertise will be good because, look, there are so many, and with generic expertise also not bad, just on a general level, but it should be a more hierarchical, like on the CEO level identified. I liked Fawad yesterday, the CEO of Do. He was talking very good general things, right? When he was going into this transformation project within Do, he started with his top talent within the org. He removed to all bureaucracy level across the organization. It helped him to achieve results. I think not him, just Do and his team. In a faster paced manner because he left behind these layers and brought in the expertise, narrow experts team to achieve those results. And it's very impressive. And the second thing he mentioned, look at what you have in the current environment. What's your infrastructure? You want to upgrade what you have, right? And go through the cycles of transformation because it's maybe not what you want to do. You maybe want to build the stack parallel to that, right? And just migrate all this traffic data and whatever it is into separate stacks. So skill set should be expertise specialized, let's say. Yeah.
Well, thank you. As you said, the future is exciting. Yep. I want to congratulate you 3 seconds before the end of the, so please round of applause to my panelists.